All right, so there seemed to be some controversy going on over on Twitter because there was a resolution that was an anti-BDS resolution. So my understanding it's not actually like any law, it's more like, oh, we're sending a message kind of thing. And it was a anti-BDS bill, and it also made it seem like being pro BDS was the same as being against Jews and stuff like that. So obviously it wasn't good. Not, of course, you should vote no on that because there's no reason to capitulate to that, especially when it's what my understanding is it's a non-binding resolution, which means it's just like the House is just sending a message is what they're doing. They're just trying to be like, you know what, this is how the House of Representatives feels about said issue. And in the House, there were a couple of progressives who voted for this resolution, that being Tulsi Gabbard, Ayanna Pressley, and Ro Khanna. All very disappointing votes, especially surprising coming from Ayanna Pressley, Ro Khanna as well, and Tulsi Gabbard. Surprising from all of them, honestly. And so Mike Figueredo from the Humanist Report, he did a video breaking it down. And looks like he got caught up in a little bit of controversy with Niko House and what looks to be, I don't know if it's his employee or something like that. I don't really know who this is. But he just tweeted this out. People tweet out their videos. And someone responds saying, are you canceling them too, like Roe, Gabbard, and Presley, asking for a lot of people not tolerating the double standards here? Mike says, criticizing a politician doesn't automatically mean they should be canceled. Had you watched the video, you would have heard me explicitly say this. She then responds saying, finally, if there was a sense of openness, fairness, and less bias, I'm sure she'd be glad to go on your show. I support that idea. Hope it can happen. I'm rooting for it. So, if you don't know what she's referencing, Mike Figueredo, I remember this. He did a breakdown video of Tulsi Gabbard, which had some critiques in it, and Tulsi Gabbard's campaign reached out to Mike, and Mike said, hey, he told us, as the viewers, we are working out the details on an interview, and I'll let you guys know when it's going to happen. But it never ended up happening. So, if you can't even, from the Tulsi campaign, if you can't even do interviews with literally independent progressive media, I don't really know where you're going to go. But, also with the whole Anna Kasparian thing, in fact, I think that the fact that didn't happen is probably makes it even more likely that Anna was telling the truth, that she didn't want her to interview her. So Mike responds saying, bias, meaning I have to unequivocally support everything she does and sacrifice my own principles in the process. No, I don't kiss ass for access. Niko House comes in he says, what are you trying to insinuate, Cool Breeze? Because you may not be kissing ass for access, but we've definitely seen you throw hissy fits for access. So, and then he says, point me to an example of me throwing a hissy fit for access. Please, I'm excited to see what you come up with. And he responds saying, I know she has a 100% voting record on LGBTQ issues, but I'm still skeptical. That's just one example. I get it. You got a job to do, but just because someone gets access, you don't, doesn't mean they kissed ass. Just means we know what we're doing. Okay, so this is ridiculous. Okay, so when he says he's throwing hissy fits for access, that's not a hissy fit at all. Mike doesn't throw hissy fits. That's not what Mike does. Mike is like a pretty professional dude. That's not what he does, and that quote is not an example of a hissy fit, even in the slightest, at all. So to characterize that as a hissy fit is hilariously dumb, doesn't make any sense, and he knows it too. He has to know it. That's not a hissy fit. But the issue of access, when it comes to, objectivity and fairness, is a big issue. It's a big problem. I'll show you another problem that exists. So with Cenk Uygur and the Young Turks and Elizabeth Warren, there seems to be a very big problem. I saw a tweet from Cenk where he was defending Elizabeth Warren, very ironically, by the way, because Elizabeth Warren said that I forgot the exact phrase she used, but she said she doesn't believe in unilateral disarmament or whatever. So, which means that once she gets out of the general election, she's definitely going to start doing those big dollar fundraisers again. And I don't know whether or not she's going to be literally taking corporate PAC money, but it doesn't matter because really the new version of that now is just, getting a bunch of rich people together, getting the maxed out 2,700 and making, a bunch of money for your campaign in one night. So she admitted to that on the Young Turks, and Cenk Uygur defends her by saying, "Oh, you guys are lying." She said she's just going to be taking, big dollar fundraiser money, not corporate PAC money, which is a weird defense because he knows that in and of itself is also corruption. And it's also ironic because that's supposed to be, both Cenk Uygur and TYT's like main thing is getting money out of politics. It's supposed to be like their biggest position. So access is a huge thing, and he doesn't want to go hard on Elizabeth Warren because obviously he doesn't want to lose access. Because if TYT starts doing hardball interviews with Elizabeth Warren, you think she's going to come back on? Hell no. Hell no. So this is a very big problem that's very well known. And we know that Niko House is a Tulsi super fan, probably the biggest Tulsi fan out there, if anything. Certainly the biggest Tulsi ambassador. Just nonstop pushing Tulsi, defending Tulsi. I think he was the biggest. He had like a dinner with Tulsi as a reward because he was, I think he had the most people donate using his link or whatever. So Mike goes on, he says, "Is that a direct quote from me? How does that constitute a hissy fit? You're not making sense. Also, what's my job that makes me so biased? Explain that. Didn't you literally say Tulsi was your personal friend? Maybe you're not the best to assess people's bias." Niko says, "Mike, let's not play stupid. You know how you acted when Tutsi first announced and you started doubling down on the nonsense the moment you saw others get an interview and you didn't get one. Repeating those nonsensical smears under the guise of objectivity." So here he's claiming that he started doubling down, or I guess furthering his smears because he didn't get an interview, which is a really insane allegation. He responds saying, "I didn't reach her to her team. I didn't reach out to her team. They reached out to me, but realized I wasn't going to give her a softball interview, so they backed off. I like Tulsi, but I'm not friends with her or any candidate like you are, so it's easier for me to be objective and critique her." Then Niko says, "LML, no, I do remember you reached to her team, and then you started doubling down. You think they expect a softball interview from anyone, especially at a time where 95% of y'all were smearing her, when y'all didn't have shit but positive things to say before she announced." Mike says, "Also, you can call my good faith criticism a smear if that makes you feel better. Here's all the time I praised / defended her after she announced." He says, "But according to you, I'm smearing her by criticizing her on a limited number of issues." Then Niko says, "Just because you said something positive, which I never said you didn't, doesn't mean you didn't engage in the smears. Not to mention all the piling on you attempted to do on Twitter during the Anna debacle, once again under the guise of objectivity. But I'll let you call it." Mike responds saying, this is the last response from my understanding, says, "Criticizing a candidate is not a smear. In my first critique video, I debunked smears and went on my way to be fair. I also criticized Bernie on reparations, Venezuela, and Assange. I'm just doing my best to be fair and objective, but you can be offended all you want." So it looks like the term smear is kind of like the favorite term out here from the Jimmy Dore wing of the left, which is, that's where Niko House lies. That's where he is. But, I think that Mike is a pretty, very reasonable dude in terms of fairness, and I think that he's just, he's doing whatever critiques he seems to, believe are legit. He's certainly not throwing hissy fits for access and whatever kind of weird things were being thrown. But David Doel also tweeted this out on Twitter. He said, "Man, that House BDS vote sure separated the, quote, progressive YouTube grifters from everyone else. Should have already been obvious, but now you know who not to trust. Mute the tools." So he's talking about Niko House right there, obviously. It's a literal line, obviously. He says, the YouTube grifters from everyone else. He's talking about Niko House. Very obvious. And Niko did a long live stream. I wish he were to do like shorter videos so that people could really watch it and it's really like sort of at least somewhat concise. I know we do like 10 to 16 minute videos, but 43 is just too long. He did this live stream. Doesn't look to be getting too good feedback, honestly. 439 likes to 658 dislikes, so people are not happy. To read a couple of these. One of them says, "Many of us love Tulsi, but when she's wrong, we need to be critical. needs to explain her position on this, like Ayana and Ro have done, albeit unconvincingly. Another one says, dude, chill with the theatrics, mocking whatever, dilutes your message. Another one says, I like Tulsi, but completely disagree with this vote. Another one says, if it's not a bill, why didn't she vote against it? Another one says, supporting an apartheid state doesn't look good for anyone, including Tulsi Gabbard. Another one says, you are not on the right side of this issue, apparently. If this is a milquetoast resolution, then why the heck didn't she vote on the right side? Political move only. Oh yeah, Tulsi also had a no vote on the 2020 military appropriation, her signature issue, and she can't find the time to vote. Defend that. Another one says, I thought we were supposed to hold everyone accountable, even if it's politicians that we like too. Another one says, I love you, man, but you need to stop being a Tulsi zombie. That was wrong, and you need to call it what it is. So basically the point of this whole thing is that people were not happy about that video. That's the point of me reading those comments. People were not happy with Niko House's video on Tulsi Gabbard. And again, Niko House is a Tulsi super fan. He seems to be under some weird delusion that his strategy is very weird. I watched part of his video yesterday that he made about it, and he's going on some extremely long blabbering rant basically, and he's if Bernie's at the end at the convention with Kamala and Warren, he can't win if he's not going to get any delegates from Tulsi, which doesn't make any sense because I think you have to get 15% in any state to get any delegates in the first place, which she's not getting 15% anywhere except for maybe Hawaii. And that's way later in the primary. She's not going to last at all. She's not going to get any delegates. And two, why would we need her delegates if we just vote for Bernie Sanders instead? That doesn't make any sense. So, his strategy seems really weird, and he just doesn't seem to be all there. And his strategy and thought process and analysis seems to be seriously devoid of any sort of, critical thinking, analysis, whatever you want to call it. I really don't know. But Mike is not someone who's smearing anyone or anything like that. He's just giving critiques of Tulsi that he finds to be fit. And Niko, instead of criticizing Tulsi to at least act as if he's got some sort of a lack of bias, instead of doing that, he defends Tulsi in this way, does not elicit a very good response, and picks up a couple of beefs in the process.